All right. I think we're ready to go. It's 1 o'clock. So, Gerry, you can hear me okay?
We hear you just fine.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining, everyone. This is Dan Marshall. I'm with New Era Technology, National Director of UC. And with me is Gerry Genna. He's the Collaboration Specialist from Cisco. And today we're going to go through all things Webex, Webex Meetings, Calling, and Contact Center. Really, if you're an existing on-prem Cisco customer, why it makes a lot of sense to make some plans to get up into the cloud. Talk about some of the ways we're going to enable you to do that, how Cisco's kind of forging the future of cloud calling. So from an agenda perspective, just did the quick intros. We're going to go through meetings first. Gerry's going to cover all that stuff as well. Then we're going to pivot over to Webex Calling. So I'll kind of go through what the portfolio looks like, the ins and outs of Webex Calling. And then we're going to wrap up with Webex Contact Center and hopefully leave enough time for some Q&A. So with that, I think we're going to go kick off. So again, Dan Marshall, National Director of UC, Gerry Genna, Collaboration Specialist from Cisco Systems. Quick overview of New Era, if you're not familiar with who New Era is as a company. So we got 60 offices worldwide. We are a Cisco Gold partner, among other things. So we've got a lot of talented resources available to help you. 3,000 employees, and really anything that touches a wire, we can help you with. So there's a whole solutions and services portfolio on the right. I won't rattle it all off because it's not pertinent to this presentation, but we can certainly help you with any of your technology needs. So with that, just a quick overview again, so you can see kind of all the stuff that New Era can help you out with in your organization. We're focusing on cloud today, but managed services, pro services, anything collaboration, data networking, we can certainly help you out. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Gerry to go through Webex Meetings.
Yep, thank you, Dan. I'm really excited that you invited me. I really appreciate that. New Era, one of our best partners with the collaboration space, right? We can make the best products, but unless your experience as a customer exceeds your expectations, you won't use it, right? No matter how sexy and cool they are. So Dan, you guys definitely bring that to the table. So COVID hit, and all of a sudden, this other company that starts with a Z got into everybody's faces, and wow, they became the face for some reason of the meetings. But that was good. It kicked us square in the pants, and we've done an extreme makeover. You guys ever watch that show on TV, The Extreme Makeover, where they remake they remake the house and the person leaves? They put this bus in front of the house. Well, this is what we've done. The extreme makeover of Webex, right? This isn't your grandma's Webex anymore. We've moved it and we've catapulted way beyond our competitors, including Z and M. So with that bus, first thing that came out was the new logo, right? I was really excited to see this, the double helix, the DNA, meetings, security, that's in our DNA. So we've bringing that to the table. And what did we hear you say? We need better quality. Well, we're too focused on IT. We need to focus on the end user. Guys, it is definitely not way too expensive. Please talk to New Era about it, because we've become very, very, very aggressive. We're not going to lose on price. And the features that we have, second to none out there. So we've rehashed it. We've heard what you had to say. We increased the quality. We've put in over 1,000 new innovations. If you haven't seen us, we're on TV. The marketing ads are there. The advertisements are there. We are definitely there, and we've made it easier to buy. And bar none, I know we don't make a lot of noise because we really don't have to. We're still the largest provider in the market. We have the largest market space. We have the most market share, not only in the meetings, but look here in the calling. 39 million cloud users, contact center, everything that you're going to hear about. We're still the #1 player out there. We just want to make sure we stay up there. And how do we do that? By listening to you guys, our customers, making sure that your experience is what you need it to be. These are some, not all, of the innovations that we've brought to the table. I'm going to hit some of them later. But we've made some serious acquisitions over the past year since the COVID hit. 2 years, wow, 2 years this month. Babel Labs for the noise removal. I'm going to demonstrate that. IMI Mobile to bring the technology and then the texting into our universe, not only in the meetings, but in the contact center. Slido. We're going to hit some of these in a few minutes. So first acquisition that I want to talk about is the Slido acquisition. It's not just the polling. It's cloud answers. It's multiple choice. It's open-ended questions. It's being able to answer anonymously. What we saw was that a lot of people, even on the chat, they don't want to ask questions. I don't want to look stupid in front of people. I don't want to ask these questions. With the anonymous, they're able to ask questions, and you're able to incorporate that into your presentation. Noise reduction. I love this thing. So I'm a big fan of Altoids, right? They're curiously strong mints. But I don't need everybody out there to hear that I have Altoids in my hand. So one of the things, and I'll demonstrate it right now, is the noise removal. So I still have it here, and you guys can't hear that anymore, right? You can't hear the dog barking. You can't hear babies crying. We're all working from home. We're in a hybrid world. We're home in the office. We need to be able to make sure that we're not distracting people that are on the call. Language translations. Boy, I was on a call with the World Health Organization, and they had people from all over the planet to be able to watch real time as they were discussing how to apply the vaccine and things to look for. I'm no doctor, but I definitely wanted to be part of that call, being a Cisco employee, seeing the real-time translations on the bottom. So I chose to watch it in Italian as well as in English, just to see it for myself. It definitely was real-time as it was going along. The computer AI can now do facial recognition. It's opt-in. I've opted in so you can see my name underneath my face. You know, how many times am I on a call and I've met 10, 15 people? I don't remember their name. So be able to see their name helps that discussion go along. Webex Assistant, not only to be able to transcribe that meeting, but taking notes and action items to follow up. I was on a call with my financial advisor who uses a different company, but he was on my Webex because that's all I'm going to meet on. He asked about the Webex Assistant, and afterwards the follow-up of the meeting notes. Are you kidding me? It changed his day. Went back to his company and said, you know, one of my customers works for Cisco, and it took notes and transcribed. They were able to switch just because of that. Being able to see who's using Webex within your organization. Are they using it effectively? What hours of the day are they using it? So is it also interfering with their quality of life? You know, having all that information. We have customers that have tagged and tied the video endpoints that we're going to show you in a little bit into their, for instance, their HVAC. They were able to say that anytime a third person enters that room, the temperature goes down in that conference room by 1 degree. That's an example. We have also customers using the environmental sensors to be able to say, hey, there's too many people in this conference room for safety reasons. One of you needs to leave, go to another conference room, etc. So being able to tie that in real time. And people insights. Again, it's an opt-in, but being able to use public information that you put on social media, so people can be able to grab information from your LinkedIn, for example, from Twitter, being able to see what you're doing outside of the general work area. I was able to be on a call with someone and was able to see that this person and I went to the same college, and be able to bring that conversation into a more friendly discussion and use that. So that's all available to you. We have integrated now into one app. We've integrated your messaging, your meeting, and your calling. You don't have to have several apps on your space. One app to do all of that. And we've changed the look to however you want it to be. If I want a grid view, like on the left, you can do that. You want to blur the background. You know, I'm using a virtual background if you haven't seen. So be able to bring that to the table. And it's the choice of the end user, what they want to see, what they don't want to see, right? So it's flexible to you. Also, look on the left. That person, those 4 people in that conference room, right? They're going to look like, that room's going to look like a tiny little postage stamp once you start sharing, because you're now using the same real estate for video as you are for the endpoints. But look on the right with people focus. Even though there's one video endpoint, 4 people in that one conference room, they come across as 4 different people. So we can bring that in. And why do we do that? With the hybrid work going forward, you know that 98% of meetings are at least going to have one person, if not more, not in that conference room with you, right? And we're heading towards that. Going forward, you're always going to have people that are not in that conference room with you. And we're definitely looking to be as inclusive as possible and bring as many people as we can and break the barrier to communication. 1, I spoke to you about language translation. 2, though, is the what you see on the left is the computer being able to, and the endpoints and the app being able to recognize facial expressions and gestures. So that'll come through. And I talked about Webex Assistant. It can be tailored to however you want to be able to tailor it. I have mine tailored that I have certain trigger words. I won't say because my endpoint will turn on, but it'll start taking notes and bring action items to everybody. But it recognizes my voice alone, to be able to transcribe and take all those information for you. And again, with the Slido, being able to engage with the audience and make it interactive, right? Like I talked to you about word cloud and polling, but ranking and multiple choice, all of that brings the people into that discussion. And now it's a hybrid world. We're going to have sometimes people on-prem, and some people are going to be in the cloud, going to be on a WebEx like we are now. What happens when I have people in one room and I also want to interact with people outside, right? You've been to some of these like Enterprise Connect, and you've been to some of these organizations where people are there in person, but you can't be there in person. We bought Socio. So Socio is able to simultaneously put it on the web and coordinate with people on site. We'll bring people that will help you set up events, and we'll send people on site if necessary. We'll help you use information like people using a credit card to get into an event, whether it's on-prem or in the cloud. We can do all that and coordinate that with you through the Socio acquisition. And we have endpoints, video endpoints for every flavor and every person. I have on my desk a Desk Pro, and you can see that up on the screen right there on the left. I also sometimes use headsets. So if I have people in the room, I'm using my headsets. When I'm traveling, I'm using my cell phone and my laptop. Being able to bring all of these endpoints, whether you're in the office, whether you're at a Starbucks, whether I'm traveling at a hotel or at home, being able to mix and match for the best experience. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Dan. Yeah, I think you're muted.
Thank you, Gerry. It took me a minute to find the controls there for the mute. So appreciate all that, Gerry. That was fantastic. Thank you. So with that, we're going to shift over into Webex Calling, and then shortly after that, Webex Contact Center. So just as a reminder too, there is a Q&A window. So if you got questions as things go along, feel free to pop those in there, and we'll address them towards the end of the webinar. So, all right, with that, getting into Webex Calling. What is Webex Calling? So real quick, we're just going to go into what Webex is from Cisco's perspective. Anything cloud is going to be referred to as Webex from Cisco. So Webex Calling is Cisco's pure cloud, native cloud calling platform. It purely exists within the cloud. There's some adjustments to that we'll talk about a little bit later. But we're going to go through really where Webex Calling fits in, why it makes sense for your organization if you're currently on-prem, and what goes into Webex Calling. So the primary goal of Webex Calling is to make sure you have a seamless experience. So no matter which app you're using, which desktop device, your experience using Webex Calling is going to be seamless across the board. It's going to be uniform. There's not going to be confusion when you're using different types of apps. And they've also tried to focus on making sure that if you're a current on-prem customer, that the experience is very similar to when you use Webex. So if you're currently an on-prem system customer looking to migrate over Webex Calling, there won't be any large training hurdles or anything for you to worry about with your end users. The application is very streamlined and focused on making sure it's intuitive and easy to use. So the hard phones, like we talked about, very similar to your current experience, but the app is really easy to navigate. And there's two flavors of it. The one we're showing is the one that Gerry mentioned. It's the Webex app that includes all the different meetings features, calling, and all the different features within Webex. There's a streamlined Webex app that we can talk about, but the core features are the same. So making phone calls is very easy, answering calls, seeing voicemail, doing transfers, couple button clicks, very intuitive, very simple and easy to use. Obviously not going to rattle off all these, but these are some of the core features that are available in Webex Calling. And there are more features coming every 2 or 3 months, so much so that I just can't keep up with them all, to be honest with you. So I always caveat things and say, maybe it's not here now, but in 2 months, it could be on the roadmap. But all the core features that you're looking for within a telephony system in the cloud, you're going to find with Webex Calling. What I really want to focus on too here is the market differentiators and what makes Webex Calling different from some of the competitors. So Cisco didn't throw a bunch of developers into a closet somewhere and develop Webex Calling over 6 months. This came from an acquisition of BroadSoft a few years back, and BroadSoft was this massive cloud phone provider that most people hadn't heard about, but they've been in the game for a long time. They have a fully fledged developed product that worked fantastic. And so Cisco acquired them a few years ago and worked to rebrand them as Webex Calling. So you are getting a tried and true market tested product, not something that just was released a year or two ago in a scramble to try to adapt to changing pandemic environments. So, but some of the benefits you get with Webex Calling that you always get with Cisco, right, is a large support environment. So there's a lot of Cisco partners. So if you work with New Era at first and something happens, you don't like New Era anymore, you got other partners to choose from. If you're very self-sufficient, there's forums, there's third-party support that you can get. So you're readily able to address issues that may arise with your system much more readily than you could with some of the competitors. When we talk about market share, Gerry touched on this with the Meeting Center. Cisco's, they're the 800-pound beast, right? So they've got massive market share. They're going to continue to drive that market share because they're a leader in driving the technology for the cloud. So one last thing to touch on here, Cisco's made an emphasis to provide investment protection to the best of their ability. So if you got 7800, 8800 model series phones, there's a few caveats to that. You can move those up to Webex Calling. So no need to buy new handsets or anything like that. Unfortunately, 7900 series model phones would not work with Webex Calling, but in all fairness, those phones are coming up on 20 years old now. So touch on the footprint for Cisco. Just to, for a lot of our customers, we focus heavily on the US, but New Era is a global company. We work with tons of companies that have offices in APAC, EU. Webex is global. So no matter where you have your employees for your organization, if you pop up new offices, if you're a growing organization, Webex is going to be able to scale with you as your organization grows. So with the pandemic, obviously I'm working from home, Gerry's working from home, a lot of people work from home, but a lot of people are starting to shift back in the office. And what does that look like for, from the collaboration perspective? Cloud solves that issue because it doesn't matter where you are. So Webex Calling really has an emphasis on a hybrid workforce. So you have apps on your smartphone, your laptop, you could have a hard phone. No matter where you go, they're going to work. They're going to provide the same experience that you're used to no matter where you go. Right? Just a quick overview of some of the devices that are available within Webex Calling. Gerry touched on some of the room kits are there, but there's headsets, cameras, the traditional IP phones that you're used to, all the soft clients. There's really a device for every need that you could have in your environment in the Webex Calling portfolio. And one thing I do want to kind of mention on the upper right-hand corner without too much emphasis on it is Cisco has recognized the fact that there are customers out there that want cloud, but may have existing Polycom or Yaling phones. You can bring those now, right? There's certain model limitations, but Cisco recognizes the fact that customers have different needs now. And again, they're evolving their product to make sure they match their customer demands. I touched on this briefly before, but the cloud experience with Webex Calling, they really want to make sure that the behavior for the phones is going to be the same, right? It's really important for our customers to know that you're not getting a whole brand new phone system. Essentially, what you're doing is you're bringing all the Cisco core features that you've relied on for years into the cloud. And part of that is making sure that your users don't have this adoption curve to worry about anymore. So putting emphasis back on the phone experience. Your users, when they plug in the phone and it registers up the Webex Calling Cloud, is going to look and feel exactly the same way that it does today. We touched on the phone protection. Again, 7800, 8800 series model phones. There's a couple of version numbers for the 7800 series that won't work with Webex Calling, but reach out to your new era rep. We can go through all that stuff for you and let you know what you can carry and what you can't carry over. But it's a very simple transition to the cloud. It's a firmware change. It doesn't take very long at all, and you're up and running in Webex Calling in no time. And from a provisioning perspective, one of the great things about Webex Calling is if you have a dynamic environment where you're constantly growing as an organization, or you may have a high turnover rate with sales folks or whoever, provisioning phones for users is super easy at this point. When you create them in Webex Calling, there's an activation code that gets generated for their phones. So you just grab a phone from the shelf, ship it out to your end user. When they power it up, they plug in that activation code, it ties it to the user, and they're up and running within minutes. So from an administrator's perspective, the days of having a phone, tying a Mac to the individual user, all that stuff's gone. So very simple, very easy to use from an administrator's perspective. When it comes to PSTN calling with Webex Calling, there's a few different options that you have available to you, and we'll go through these in a second. But you do have pure cloud PSTN calling options available. But if you do have a contract that you just signed, for example, right, you got a 3-year contract you're tied into with Verizon, AT&T, whoever it may be, but you do still want to get your system into the cloud, you can use services to help you deliver that. And the 3 options really are premise-based PSTN or local gateway. So again, if you just sign a contract with one of your current carriers, and you're locked in there for 3 years, you can't go pure cloud from a PSTN perspective, no problem. We can install what's called a local gateway, register that up into Webex Calling, and all your PSTN calls will come down through the Webex Cloud, through that local gateway out to your local PSTN. New Era is a Webex Calling service provider. So when you sign up with us, Cloud PSTN is built right in. So the minute you sign into the account, you can start making and receiving phone calls. And if you do go with Webex Calling, but you want to choose your own carrier, let's say that you have a relationship with IntelliPure or someone like that, you can use a cloud connected provider into your Webex tenant to provide pure cloud PSTN calling. So it's really flexible, gives you a lot of options, and you can mix and match the CCP, cloud PSTN, or the premise-based solutions as well. So if there are certain offices, for example, where again, you've got a contract, you could have half the organization using cloud PSTN and certain offices using local PSTN. So very flexible, providing a lot of options for our customers. When we're migrating customers in the cloud, there's a few different options that we can do. So I touched on local gateway for PSTN, but one of the really powerful features of the local gateway feature is if you have a large on-prem call manager footprint and you can't just do a forklift migration into Webex Calling, using local gateway allows you to ease into the cloud. And how you do that is we install a couple local gateways to provide interop and calling between the Webex Calling instance and your on-prem system. And using some dial plan modifications, we can make it appear seamless to the end user. So no matter which phone you go to, you wouldn't necessarily know if you were on the Webex Calling instance or if you were on the on-prem system. And what that allows us to do for our customers is as their organization allows it, we can move groups of users, groups of offices, things like that up into Webex Calling. And once everyone's completely up into the cloud, you simply turn off the servers, turn off the gateways, and now you're 100% pure cloud. For customers that have needs greater than what Webex Calling can currently provide, but want to move into the cloud, Cisco announced what's called dedicated instance. Effectively what that is you're able to bring your on-prem system that you currently have, move it up into Cisco's data centers, tie it all into Webex Calling, and get a pure cloud experience with all the on-prem features that you may need. There are some customers, the hospitals, for example, that have a lot of intricate things that their system depends upon native call manager for, and they can't move into the cloud because of those dependencies. For that instance, we can accomplish moving them into the cloud with dedicated instance, but still provide all those native capabilities that they're looking for. And as far as getting over into the cloud, we talked about this with the dial plan. Using local gateways dial plan, we can get this to be a true seamless migration experience up into the cloud for you. So if you're a large on-prem, medium on-prem, once we work through the dependencies and figure out what the topology needs to look like, we can begin to architecture this in a way that you have a seamless experience moving up into the cloud. The administration for Webex is something really powerful, and a lot of the customers I've been working with are excited about. One of the chief complaints I've heard over the years is that the call manager administration is just brutal. There's a lot of stuff, a lot of menu options, a lot of stuff to trip up on when you're configuring users, right? That all goes away with the Webex Calling Control Hub. So everything that you need to do from Webex Calling perspective is all going to be in the simple administration interface. So the Control Hub offers a few different powerful things, but first and foremost is analytics. So you're able to quickly go into Control Hub, and if you have users that are reporting issues, saying, hey, I was on a call, it sounded terrible. You have some sales folks that are joining meetings and they can't join, things like that. You're able to pull real-time statistics in the Control Hub for what the user's experience was. So as soon as I pick up my Webex Calling phone and start to make a phone call, my endpoint is communicating to the Control Hub in real time about what that audio and the audio and video looks like. And then if I actually have a reported issue, I can contact the administrator. They go in the Control Hub and they can see, oh yeah, between 11 and 11:15, a lot of latency went up. It could be an issue with your local internet connection, those types of things. So very valuable insights. From a management perspective, adding phones and users is very, very simple. You don't have this complex menu of things to choose from anymore. I don't want to go into this in too much detail, but the Webex calling experience is more focused on the user base. And what I mean by that is you start with the user creation or workspace creation, and then you attach numbers, features, and phones to the actual user. So unlike Call Manager, where you're adding devices and you have to create device pools and all these different things, all that stuff's been eliminated. So, and lastly, and we'll touch on this, each end user has access to their own portal right out of the gate. And there's a lot of powerful things that they can do with inside that portal, namely voicemail password reset. So a lot of administrators get requests to change their voicemail PIN. In Webex Calling, you actually don't have a choice to reset a PIN for someone. You can initiate the reset, but you can no longer hard code a value, right? So the users can go in, change their own PIN. They can do the call forwarding and really self-service themselves a lot and offloading some of the demands that they've put onto the IT staff. I'm going to skip over this slide just for the sake of time. And want to touch on the fact that security is built in, not bolted on to Webex Calling. So all the compliance things, all the different security things you'd expect as far as physical security for data centers go, data encryption, fraud prevention, data protection, all built in the platform natively, all certified. And there's a link at the bottom that we can provide you as well. So if you want to get into detail as far as what compliances you get with Webex Calling, we can get those for you. Lastly, the Webex Common Identity allows your users to have the same logins and passwords that they use for Windows O365 with Webex Calling. So you don't have to have separate login username and passwords. So again, focusing on simplicity and ease of use for your end users. And the last thing I want to touch on Webex Calling is the licensing. And the only reason I'm really bringing this up is because, again, focusing on the fact that Cisco is listening to their customers. Licensing historically was just kind of a nightmare, right? Customers got very confused about licensing, and no matter what changes were made, it always seemed to be cumbersome. That's all gone. When you go to Webex Calling, you essentially have two licenses. Do you need voicemail? You're a professional license. Are you a workspace, either a conference room phone, hallway phone, or a place that just doesn't need voicemail? You're an enhanced license. That's it. There is a meeting callings package where you bundle everything together in a suite that we can talk about later. But for most of our customers, ordering just professional or enhanced, two licensing options, that's it. Very clean, very straightforward. All right. And with that, we're on to the last phase, which is the Webex Contact Center. So if you bear with me 1 second, I'm just going to grab a sip of water since I talked for a lot. All right. So the current state of Webex, with Unified Contact Center. Most customers have an on-prem system today. It's UCCX. It's been around since the early 2000s. It's HA. It's a beast. It's done a lot of work, but doesn't really work well for a hybrid work environment, right? We have a lot of customers now moving their contact center users remotely. they're getting like a remote Z3 device or something where it phones home back to the data center and they're working from home, or maybe they're hybrid workforce where some users come in, some users are working from home. A lot of challenges with on-prem systems, especially contact center, because contact center has such stringent requirements for latency and other network dependencies for remote call center users. With Webex Contact Center, all that stuff goes away. So first and foremost, Webex Contact Center is a vendor-agnostic cloud contact center solution. So what that means is if you currently have a competitor to Cisco for your system, but you want to get a cloud contact center solution, Webex Contact Center can do it for you. In an ideal scenario, you couple Webex Calling with Webex Contact Center, but just to underscore the fact that Webex Contact Center is vendor agnostic, so it can work with any of Cisco's competitors. It can work with cell phones. So if you don't even have an on-prem system, let's say that you're a startup, but you want to make sure that you've got a call center to service new customers, you could put in a cell phone, and Webex Contact Center can use your cell phone to route calls for call center reps. Right. There's a lot of stuff that's going in from an enhancement perspective on the contact center side. One of the biggest drivers is on an on-prem contact center, anything that you want to do outside of what's built into the box is going to require bolt-ons. And so we have some customers that have a lot of custom development to do things like screen pops, CRM integrations, all that kinds of stuff. But it requires more servers, more development, all that kinds of stuff. Webex Contact Center has a big focus on open APIs, simple integration, but more importantly, they're focusing on making sure that it's true omni-channel experience for you. So what does that mean by omni-channel? It's traditional phone calls, right? But you can also do chat, social media, email queuing. So really any way that a customer could interact with your organization, Webex Contact Center is going to have a feature set that allows you to communicate with them effectively and easily. From a programming perspective, there's really a drag and drop interface called a flow canvas that now allows you to quickly and easily create scripts, modify scripts that's much easier to use than traditional on-prem UCCX. One of the chief complaints we have from our customers on UCCX is that it works great, it's fantastic, it does everything we need to, but every time we need to make a simple change, we have to call you, we have to pay money, and it can get very expensive. Well, with Webex Contact Center, it's all GUI based, it's very simple to use, and it helps lower costs for your organization, adapt to changes much more quickly, and meet the needs of the cloud from a contact center perspective. There's a lot of features and benefits that we could go over, and unfortunately an hour is just not enough time to really cover everything. But this slide here kind of touches on some of the key features and benefits of Webex Contact Center. One of the cool things that Cisco is doing is they're putting a lot of emphasis on AI and machine learning. And that sounds great, right? Cool buzzwords. What does that actually mean? Just to give you some sample sets, they're building in intelligence where if they start hearing keywords from the customer or from the agent, the contact center will actually prompt them for changes to their behavior. Now, what I mean by that is if the customer sounds like they're getting aggravated, the system could prompt them and say, the customer sounds like they're aggravated, talk about this, right? It's an oversimplified example of what I mean, but they're building a lot of intelligence in the Webex Contact Center to help make sure that it's curated in such a way that your customers calling into the contact center have a great experience, but also the agents servicing your customers through the contact center have all the tools that they need to provide your customers with the best experience. And so we get to why should we move to Webex Contact Center in the cloud, right? I'm not going to rattle off all these, but the look and feel of the Webex Contact Center is very simple, clean, easy to use. It's 100% pure cloud. We touched on the fact that it's vendor agnostic. Use whatever 10-digit telephone number you want, if you're in the US, obviously, to work. There's, again, a heavy investment towards AI and machine learning. That is only going to continue to go from Cisco's perspective. One of the singular benefits, in my opinion, about moving to the cloud is that you're in a better position to quickly adopt new technologies that become available because it's all built into the cloud. With an historical on-prem system, anytime something new comes out, you've got to schedule the upgrade, you've got to pay for the services to get the upgrade done, you've got to worry about the outage window, and then hope the upgrade goes well. Once you move into the cloud, all that stuff goes away. Oh, and by the way, as Cisco works on R&D and brings in new features, they instantly become available to you. So if you want to start using them, you click the box, you activate the feature, and away you go. From a licensing perspective, again, Cisco's kept contact center very, very simple. You just need to make audio phone calls for your contact center. You're a standard license. If you want to get pure omni-channel to be able to handle social media, email, all the different features, and get access to the advanced analytics. It's a premium license. So very, very straightforward from a licensing perspective as well. And to wrap this up, to leave enough time for Q&A, why New Era Technology? So first and foremost, we're a Cisco Gold and Master Collaboration Partner. So we've got tons of CCIEs. We have people with 20, 30 years of experience in telco, all things Cisco UC, and we have a broad customer base with hundreds of thousands of endpoints deployed across the globe that we both deployed and that we're monitoring. We're one of the first 10 Webex Calling SPs in the US, so we recognized about 3 years ago that this was the direction for New Era. And so we heavily invested that as soon as possible. We have some of the deepest contact center experience in the US. So the CX team from New Era has been doing contact center for over 20 years. And in every iteration that has flowed through Cisco, they've been at the top of the game with essentially becoming the go-to partner for all things contact center for the US. So I won't rattle on the rest of it because everyone can read here, but we have our own software developers. So if you have custom integrations that you need with Webex Contact Center or with Webex Calling, we have DevOps developers. We have all the different things that you would need to help you get a successful transition into the cloud. So I think that is it. All right. Yeah. So I didn't see any questions pop up. Oh, there is one. Let's take a look here. All right. So we got the question about the specs for phones and branches. So the math for your needs basically boil down to 100K per call, active call. The registration for the phones is very nominal, to say the least. So if you've got 50 phones, you could have a 5 meg connection, it would register just fine. When they go to actually make calls, that's where the bandwidth starts to become a real concern. So if you've got 50 phones that you're worried about having simultaneous calls for, it's 50 times 100K, which is about 5 megs, I think if my math is right. So most modern ISP connections that you have at your house or at your home are going to be more than adequate to support cloud calling.
Part of that question then, he's asking about replacing Cisco Jabber.
Mm-hmm. Correct. So it doesn't see location. Oh, so I missed the second. So there's 3 parts. First part was the speed.
Yep.
The second one was the best way to handle redundancy. The best way to handle redundancy right now is with a second internet connection. So a lot of our customers will have an expensive primary internet connection, and then they'll purchase a secondary lower cost option just as a backup. There is some investment. It has not been announced yet with getting an analog to SRST for Webex calling, but it's not here yet. So if you were to deploy this today, you want to make sure you had redundant pathways, whether it's a WAN connection, LAN connection, SD-WAN connection for the redundancy. And yes, 100%, this would replace Jabber. So if you went up into Webex calling, you'd be using the Webex calling app, and Jabber completely goes away at this point. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, feel free to reach out to me directly.
Yeah, the Webex calling app does everything that Jabber does, plus more. And you could shut off other features that you don't need, but it's got the ability to give you more capabilities than you have now.
Yep, absolutely.
I don't think we have other questions here.
I don't know to take that as I did such a great job. No one has any questions, but what I would say is we're here to help, and we're here to help answer questions. So if you're like me, you don't want to ask questions into the Q&A window, reach out to us directly. You can reach out to me. I think my email should be somewhere. Oh, there we go. solutions@neweratech.com. Long story, reach out to your New Era rep. We can set up an independent call. We can go through this a little bit more detail. One thing I didn't mention, by the way, we can get you a Webex Calling, Webex Meetings, Webex Contact Center trial. So if you want to take a run at Webex Meetings, right? You're not sure you want to pull the trigger, but you're really interested in trying it out, reach out to us. We can get you a 90-day demo of Webex Meetings. We can get you a 90-day demo of Webex Calling. We want to make sure you're comfortable and happy with this, and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure that you're feeling good and you see the future the way that we do. So cool. All right. Well, we've had enough awkward silence. I think that's it. I appreciate everyone taking the time to join. Hopefully you found this informative, and we look forward to hearing from you in the future.
Thanks, everyone.